commentary with JohnnyChess.com. Live video, J-EFFS.com.
The McLaughlin Group is brought to you by Siemens. Across the country, we're building answers and we're building them to last. Siemens. Answers.
Just wanted to check and make sure that we are on schedule.
The first technology of its kind
Mom and Dad, I have great news.
is now providing answers families need. Siemens. Answers.
We believe that if love is a chemical reaction, chemistry has a good chance to make the world a more harmonious place. Chemistry works so that bandages end up loving the water. Families are less afraid of energy bills. And even cars and clean air get along better. That's why we don't just make chemicals, we create chemistry. BASF, the chemical company.
Issue 1. Drone on. Drones are UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles, aircraft that are operated remotely from nearby or from thousands of miles away, like the distance between the nation of Afghanistan and the Air Force Base in the U.S. state of Nevada. Drones come in various shapes, sizes, and weights. They are used for surveillance, disablement, and killing. And drones are increasingly ubiquitous. There are 64 drone bases spread across the United States alone, and the U.S. has other drone installations across the planet. Africa is increasingly a drone-based environment. A newly authorized site in the nation of Niger will become the 6th U.S. drone base in Africa, joining one in Morocco, Senegal, Burkina Faso, Uganda, and a permanent one in Djibouti. U.S. drone attacks ordered by Commander-in-Chief Obama have spiked, particularly in Yemen, Somalia, Afghanistan, and notably Pakistan, where over 360 drone strikes over the 9 years, 2004 to 2013, have killed over 3,000 people. This data is not classified, and not even secret, but it is troubling. So troubling that the UN has just decided to launch an investigation on the impact of drone strikes on thousands of civilians. Question: will the UN Human Rights Council rule that drone use violates international law, do you think, Pat Buchanan?
I don't think they will. If they do, John, it doesn't make any difference. But we really ought to be concerned about these drone strikes. They're a tremendously effective weapon. They've been killing an awful lot of tourists and the rest of the collateral damage, the surveillance, the killing of children. The tremendous alienation they've increased all over this region has resulted in Al-Qaeda, frankly, getting a tremendous number of new recruits. Are we recruiting more enemies than we're killing? That's the key question when you look to see how Al-Qaeda is no longer in just Afghanistan, but about 6 or 7 other countries, and we're putting all those drone bases in these new countries because Al-Qaeda is expanding. Are we winning the war is the question, John.
Well, with drones, you don't see boots on the ground, and they're not easy to count.
Who's the government going to kill today?
The question is good. It's kind of a concealment of the other facts.
With the proliferation of drones, we don't know who the government's going to kill.
They are the 21st century modern tools, and in many ways they are a blessing. Much better than bombers, because they can be more effective and targeted than bomber planes just raining bombs down. With an enemy that is harbored in various places, in countries where we are not at war with the country, it's the only way you can really get at them, short of invading that country, which we did and discovered that isn't so hot. So I would say they are a blessing, but they bring all sorts of ethical and moral concerns, and there should be some sort of judicial review. And the program that appears to be the most troubling is the one run by the CIA, and that's the one that's been targeting Afghanistan and Pakistan.
Right. Well, the administration claims that these are only used for high-value targets who are an imminent threat. We don't know if that's true because there's no oversight. But we do know that they've killed thousands and thousands of people. Now, what kind of an organization has thousands and thousands and thousands of senior level people? So, in fact, the research into it says that only about 2% of the people that were killed were senior level members of Al-Qaeda, and more than 1,000 civilians have died as a result of this.
What are your impressions, Mark?
Well, I think it is the only possible solution we have to some of the problems we're facing. It is not a perfect solution, but I agree with what Honor was just saying. We don't have too many options here to go into countries where there are a lot of problems in terms of terrorists who are willing to go after the United States. It's the only way we can keep them on the run, and we have been effective with it.
Okay, forget international law. What about the U.S. Constitution? Thursday, at his confirmation hearing before the Senate Intelligence Committee, CIA Director nominee John Brennan answered blunt questions on the U.S.'s Drone Attack Authority. A confidential memo detailing the Justice Department's legal reasoning for killing American citizens with drones was released this week.
Any American who joins Al-Qaeda will know full well that they have joined an organization that is at war with the United States and that has killed thousands upon thousands of individuals, many of them who are Americans. So I think any American who did that should know well that they in fact are part of an enemy against us, and that the United States will do everything possible to destroy that enemy to save American lives.
What's the troubling aspect of the Justice Department's reasoning concerning the use of drones against U.S. citizens?
I'll tell you, John, the troubling aspect is this. Look, if an individual joins Al-Qaeda and he's out there planning a bomb or he's involved in an attack on Americans, look, he's fair game. He's an enemy combatant. But what the Justice Department said is, look, high-ranking U.S. officials can pick out ranking operatives of Al-Qaeda who represent an imminent danger. And we killed one guy in Yemen, this al-Awlaki fella, who was a propagandist for Al-Qaeda. But he was not a combatant. He was no imminent threat to the United States. He was an American citizen. This is so loose and so nebulous. The president is basically claiming a right to execute Americans on foreign soil.
Well, if you want to
and
go
we ought to
ahead
hold
and
it, Eleanor.
defend,
We ought to define this
you've
a little bit
exceeded the
closer.
20-second time limit.
A little bit
Pat.
closer. And I know you never have, Eleanor.
All right, quickly, Eleanor, what do you want to say?
I was saying, if Pat wants to go and defend this gentleman, you're welcome to it.
Yeah.
He was involved with the planning of the Christmas bombing, which would have exploded a plane over Detroit if he had gone forward. He was involved in the bomb that was planted in Times Square. I mean, I think that there was sufficient evidence there. And because you're a U.S. citizen, you don't get to hide behind your passport when you're plotting attacks against this country on behalf of a declared enemy of this country. Now, granted, I think there should be some judicial review, and I think that's where we're going to come out here. And because the UN Council is looking at this, it's all the more reason that this president should get out there, and he calls it an architecture for how to handle these attacks. But yes, we do need more transparency, we need more oversight, we need all of that. But basically, what's going on is a positive thing for U.S. security.
Let's hear from the veteran senior senator from Oregon, widely respected, universally respected, had this to say about drones at Thursday's Senate hearing.
It's the idea of giving any president unfettered power to kill an American without checks and balances that's so troubling. Every American has the right to know when their government believes it's allowed to kill them.
Holder is asserting, by the way, in the memo that the Supreme Court cannot stop the president from ordering drone strikes. The memo asserts that the judiciary has no jurisdiction to overturn the president's power to order drone attacks on a U.S. citizen deemed an imminent threat because this is a unitary power vested in the executive. What do you think of that?
That's crazy. And look, if it's true that he was involved in these particular attacks, then present your evidence in a court, indict the fellow, at least indict him before you go out and kill him. 2 weeks after they killed the father, they killed his son, his 16-year-old son, in a completely separate strike. Nobody accused his son of being involved in any terrorist activity. He hadn't seen his father in 2 years. He was out looking for his father when he was killed by a drone strike along with another boy.
You remember, John, you authored some thoughts on this to G.W. Bush. Well, they say that the people in the White House today make John Woo look like a Boy Scout. compared to the authority that's given the president and the invisibility of him.
You know, I have to say, we are facing a unique kind of threat. This is not something you can treat casually. With all due respect, we have got to find some way to defend ourselves. This is the role of the President of the United States and the executive branch of the United States. And I do think this is absolutely appropriately within the power of the presidency and should be
But
that
Mark,
way.
let me ask you, look, there are apparently no limits. Can we strike people in Afghanistan, in Western China? Can we strike people anywhere in Africa? Where can he strike?
This is why you have a presidency.
We've got a Congress too, which is
But
more
the
power.
national security of the country is basically in the hands of the presidency. And this is something
He can
that
go where he wants and kill whom he wants.
No, there are restraints.
All right, we're gonna be
In the
debating
Justice
very
Department,
fast.
Pentagon, and the CIA, and the
His
White
little
House.
deputies are over there telling him what he can and can't do.
This is going to be an
And
ongoing
what about the Death Network?
debate.
If he wants to score on the Death Network, he can do it.
This is a whole new world. Exit question. The United Nations Human Rights Council is now examining drone strikes. If some or all of anti-terrorist drone use is found to constitute war crimes, and the UN moves the matter to the ICC, which is the UN's International Criminal Court,
Walking
will
and talking,
President
breathing
Obama be
in,
able to
thinking
travel
this
overseas
Sunday
for the
morning.
rest of
Jeff
his
at
life
Jess.com.
without fearing ending up in the ICC docket?
We should tell the ICC to mind its own business, but we should have the Congress of the United States and the leaders of the United States debate this issue and set rules of engagement we can all agree upon and follow.
Yeah, as Wyden's point is well taken, to try,
I think Wyden's
stop
raising
trying
a
to sweep
valid
this
point.
under the rug.
Yeah, let's put it up front.
These are valid questions, and they were debated in the hearing for the confirmation of John Brennan this week. It's how a democracy should work. Nice that we're fighting about it, but the drone program is here to stay, and I don't believe that the UN is going to raise questions about invading the sovereignty of other countries, but they don't have any power to stop this, and we're not going to be the only country who has drones. This is the warfare of the 21st century.
Ryan, what do you think?
Well, if he does have
Means
trouble
radar.
traveling, he can take advice from some other past secretaries of state and other folks who decide not to go to certain countries where they might get arrested. And I think it'll depend on the political climate over the next 20 years. If these are the weapons of the future and the world decides that this is how we want to fight war with robots, firing arbitrary death out of the sky, then he'll probably be okay. I think we'll live to regret this though.
Robotic warfare. What do you think of that one?
Listen, I don't think we'll live to regret it. I think we would regret it if we didn't do something about it and we were attacked. We would say, where the heck were we when we could have done something about it?
This
This
all
is the
comes
role,
down to
as
my
I said, the
foreign
executive branch.
policy.
It's a different kind of
Come
work.
back to
We've
my
got to do
foreign
something
policy,
about it.
which is
You
an
can't have
immigration
all kinds of
policy.
judicial processes in which all
Jeff
this
at
material comes
Jess.com's
out and you
foreign
end up
policy is
losing
an
whatever
immigration
advantage
Secret
you
court.
have.
Well,
You
we
can
have
have
a
a secret court.
We have a drone base in Saudi Arabia, okay? We just found out. Now, why did Osama bin Laden declare war on the United States? He said the Americans were on the sacred soil of Saudi Arabia in the land of Mecca and Medina. That's why he declared war.
We
It
could
is
be the
insane to put a drone
greatest
base right in
nation
there and
on
antagonize
Earth.
1.5
If we could
million
accommodate
Muslims.
They have so many
Okay.
reasons to hate us.
From
The
all
drones
the
are
other
just one
nations.
more.
Issue 2, defense
But no, you
downside.
have to be redneck.
If these
Tell them to go away.
there will be a serious disruption in defense programs and a sharp decline in our military readiness.
Leon Panetta is leaving his job as Secretary of Defense.
Leon, my dog knows the truth. Panetta.
warned of the looming budget cuts the Pentagon faces due to sequestration in Washington Argonne for automatic spending cuts that will slash the Defense Department's budget by roughly $42.7 billion this year
If
alone.
we can accommodate
The cuts are
people from
currently
around the
scheduled to go into
earth,
effect on
we
March
would be
1,
the greatest
3 weeks
nation
away.
on the
In
earth.
his speech, Panetta says the Pentagon is already
JeffAtJess.com
preparing
foreign
itself for the
policy.
Budget Act. One of the most visible
No.
signs being the reduction
The only
from 2
thing
to
that
1
knows the
number of
truth
aircraft carriers
is
the
Leon
U.S.
Panetta's
operates in the
dog.
critical Persian Gulf.
This is not a game. This is reality. These steps will seriously damage
Bravo! I know
fragile economy,
The
they will
dog!
degrade our ability to respond to crisis precisely at a time of rising instability across the globe.
Question: can the
Leon,
Pentagon survive?
My
budget
dog knows the
cuts? Well,
truth!
Secretary
Banana!
Panetta is on the mark, Martha.
We're going to have to cut up some of the costs out of virtually every department of the government. We cannot simply ignore it. Everybody comes up with the case why we should raise the money to do it. We've got to do something to get our budgets under control, because otherwise this whole thing's going to explode.
John, if
How,
you
how does our military compare with militaries around the
spend
world?
more than-
We have about 1 million in the active, and
we got 1.2 million, 1.4 active duty or something. But let me, John, let me look.
That is
If
a lot.
Panetta is correct, why does the President of the United States propose a
That's
different
Jump City
set
there.
of cuts for the same amount of money if it's going to savage the defense budget? He has
Hey.
not come forward with that. Clearly,
pull
this is a
this
meat axe
intercostal
approach,
right
the
here.
approach, but frankly,
This
it's
one
the
on
only way
his
the
top
Republicans are
rib
going to
that
get
comes
any cut.
around right
And
here.
there's going to be a sequestration
That thing
if
wrapped
the
all
President
the way
doesn't come
around
forward with his own
like
different
that.
where does the
Why
85?
don't-
Where does the saved $85 billion
On my
finally end up?
Rotator cup.
The saved
On
eight,
my
well, they made this
rotator.
deal that they have to cut a certain amount of
Pull that one
money,
out.
but
Both of
the
them.
money
It's an artery and
supposedly
a
is going to
vein.
reduce the
There.
deficit. But
And a
the problem
vertebrae.
with the sequestration is that it is
Pull that
indiscriminate.
out.
If you let Leon Panetta do those cuts and figure out where they should come from and did it with a scalpel, that would be fine. But you know, I think the Defense Department can handle this. The President is not going to come up with
Cut
cuts
loose a little
and
bit. I can
programs that he wants if the Republicans don't say what
back
they
inside
want.
that
Nobody
rib.
want it to be the virgin birth of spending cuts. Neither side wants their fingerprints on it.
Well, Ryan, you know and I know that the $85 billion goes back into the private sector. And what happens to it then?
Well-
then it becomes much more lucrative than $85 billion because it's reinvested. Where?
it doesn't-
In private enterprise,
It
correct?
doesn't necessarily go back into the private sector. It vanishes.
It
Because
vanishes?
It vanishes.
How does that happen?
They don't
One
borrow.
of them
They
became.
don't
It's
borrow,
not,
it's
it's not,
spent.
it's not being borrowed.
It's being borrowed.
The
But if
government.
it's still, if it's no longer borrowed, it's unborrowed, and it's in the private sector where it's functioning under the rules of and
sitting in the banks.
and the programmatics of sound capitalism. Issue 3, GOP soul search.
We believe very strongly, obviously, in things like fiscal discipline and not spending money you don't have. We also believe in that because it helps people. In the same way, we've got to address the plight of so many working Americans right now and those who don't have any work and say that, yes, we've got policies that will help you.
Eric Cantor, House Majority Leader, is the number 2 ranking Republican in the House. Speaker John Boehner being number 1. Majority Leader Cantor made a major appeal to his party this week. Namely, Republicans revamped. 3 months ago, the GOP failed to win the White House with Mitt Romney as its candidate.
Because of
The
immigration.
party also lost seats in the Senate and in the
They
House.
did come out
One
with a
reason,
rich redneck.
the U.S. fiscal woes, debt, and
Boy
deficit.
Scout.
They were drums pounded hard by Republicans during the 2012 election. On Tuesday, in an
Boy
address at the
Scout.
American Enterprise Institute in Washington, Majority Leader Cantor declared that while these
Wait till that
economic issues
beat,
are
remember,
crucial,
Boy Scout.
Republicans ought to have widened the lens beyond economics, finance, force, etc.
I'd like to focus really on what lies beyond the fiscal debate. I mean, let's face it, it's gotten a lot tougher to raise a family in America. And our goal has got to be to eliminate this doubt gripping our nation's family and families and to restore their hope and confidence.
Cantor cites GOP proposals that will make health care more accessible, boost charter schools,
Healthcare.
expand visas for highly skilled workers, create more jobs, flex
You're on
time
your
for
own with
workers,
your healthcare.
and medical research. Question: did the
My
GOP
advice would be
lose
to
the presidential
find a
election
drunk
because of its
doctor
stance on fiscal issues?
Miami.
No, I don't think that's
Has
why they lost
cancer.
the election. They lost
Is
the
near
election because
death.
they were out of touch with a large portion of the American public, particularly the minority communities, but also the people who were hurting. They didn't have any kind of program that dealt with those issues. What he is trying to do is to move the Republican Party, if I may say so, from the hard right to the center, at least to the center right. And I think he had a lot of issues in that speech in which he made very constructive and very progressive statements, and I think he's heading the right way. If the Republicans
John,
ever want
John,
to, if the Republicans
near
ever
death.
want to get back in power,
He has to
Cancer
want to
patient
focus
doctor.
on education.
Might actually work for you, John.
Education's terrific. Healthcare, education. He checked off a lot of
But he
Democratic
has an
priorities.
excellent point, John.
Let's pat in, Ellen.
He's got an excellent point here. Republican Party's getting to be a green eye shade party, budget, deficits, debt. It's become the tax collector for the welfare state, and that's a real problem, and it should have a whole panoply of issues. That part I agree with Eric Tanner.
I was in the front row at the American Enterprise Institute listening to that speech, and if I closed my eyes and didn't know who was standing behind that podium, I would have thought it was Barack Obama. He came out for all sorts of progressive things, but he doesn't attach any legislation to it. He's just trying to change the subject, and he has the slogan, making life work for more people. But, he's
What is so? Elder going to call Canner Obama.
He acts like a life coach.
Eleanor, if it had been Barack Obama, you would have supported everything you said.
I supported a lot of what he said, but it's not going to go anywhere in his party.
Issue 4, immigration reform.
It's no secret that there are more than 11 million people here illegally, many of whom have become part of the fabric of our country. They, like us, have families and dreams. While we are a nation that allows anyone to start anew, we are also a nation of laws. And that's what makes tackling the issue of immigration reform so difficult. A good place to start is with the kids. One of the great founding principles of our country was that children would not be punished for the mistakes of their parents. And it is time to provide an opportunity for legal residence and citizenship for those who are brought to this country as children and who know no other home. It's the right thing to do for our families, for our security, and for our economy.
Question is, majority leader
Canner, why did
and
you
now
tell
the
that to
highest-ranking
Governor
Republican
Perry
leader
about
to
9
endorse
months ago?
A path to legal residency for the 11 million illegal immigrants already in the U.S.
That's not what he said, John. He just said that he sympathized with the dreamers, who were the children who were brought here by their parents through no fault of their own, and to give them some legal residency. He didn't come out for a path to citizenship, and that is the sticking point. And it's hard for me to think that House Republicans would go along with that, but I do think they're going to get some sort of immigration reform. They're going to bring some sense to this system. Pat won't be able to stand it, but it's going to happen.
Well, before Pat does that, for your information, I was talking about an implicit endorsement. The whole context of the speech carries that implicit endorsement.
But you're wrong,
feel to it.
John. But you're wrong. The highest ranking guys,
that
you got
far.
McCain and Lindsey Graham, are already out for this, probably Jeb Bush. But the point is, this is not going to get through amnesty and a path to citizenship, because this piece of legislation Obama's got is going to be broken up and voted on in pieces in the House committee, and the Republican House is going to kill amnesty and a path to citizenship before it gets to the floor.
Yeah, but they may allow some sort of legalizing and permanent residency of people in this country, and that would be a huge step forward.
40% of the respondents in a Rutgers poll blame illegal immigrants for taking U.S. jobs. Is immigration necessarily a winning issue for the GOP, do you think, Ryan?
It's a winning issue with regards to their base, but we've seen that just focusing on their base isn't going to make them a competitive national party. If you're satisfying them here, then you're alienating Latinos who went 70+% for Democrats.
Is it a corrosive wedge issue?
Yeah, but it depends on winning issue.
Well, the issue won't go
I mean,
away.
you have
unless
to
the
look
Republicans
at
find a way to
who's
come to
controlling
terms
the
with it.
intercostal arteries
They
on
lost
your
a
body.
huge portion. The Republicans
You can't
lost a huge
forget
portion
that.
of the minority
So,
communities.
if
in
you
this
can't
last
vote,
election, and they're not. These
for me,
communities are growing at a rapid rate. And if the Republicans don't come up with an effective policy, they're going to be a
that's what you're going to have to do.
This was a huge step that Cancer took. The House Republicans, the Senate Republicans that you
when
mentioned,
you're in office,
Graham and a couple of
you
others,
must vote
it's
your
easier
constituency.
for them. But the House Republicans are
time.
really united against any kind of
That's the
serious.
reason why West was not reelected, because he didn't vote his constituency. If he was voting his constituency, he would have not
It happened
tried
in
to pass the
2007.
fair tax.
That had all the establishment support, and they took that thing down, and I think they're going to be able to do it again.
Is it amnesty?
In
If
the
they
modern
take bonds,
times,
they learn
the
English,
politician
they
must
get to
vote
the back of a
his
long line,
constituency.
And they're taking care of our children and mowing our lawns and
if you're
contributing
here
to the
illegally
system. It's not
and you
amnesty.
say you can stay,
It's
you're legal,
acknowledgement of
and you
reality.
can become a citizen.
What fights?
Acknowledgement of reality.
What fights the endorsement of?
If our constitutional protocol is to survive,
people today. They feel
the
that
politician must vote.
Jobs. That's what that
the
is.
constituency.
Well, it's not only that,
Otherwise,
it's the
it'll all be
sovereignty
wiped
issue,
out.
it's the border
It
issue,
would
it's the
play time to
security
go.
issue, it's the jobs issues, all of these things. It's the
We're on the verge of playtime being
The
over.
next round of
We're on the verge of
major
losing our
polls to show
protocol
Barack Obama sinking
because
back
we've
towards
lost
50%
the
of the
war.
vote.
Dream on, Pat. Republican governors John Kasich and Rich Snyder in Michigan and Ohio are leading the way in accepting the Medicaid expansion plan, and opposition to the Obama's
to
health care
even-
plan will melt away.
Right.
Maggie
How
Hassan
close to
jumps into
keeping
the
our
New Hampshire
protocol,
Senate
we
race,
must
knocks off Kelly Ayotte.
vote the
What do you think about that, Rich? All of those women up there winning those races. We're going to talk about that next week. What?
The United States and the European Common Market countries are going to work out a huge common free trade zone. Europe and the United States, it'll change the world's economy.
I predict that President Obama's approval rating will break 60% in an upward climb by St. Patrick's Day. Happy Valentine's Day. Bye-bye.
Just wanted to check and make sure that we are on schedule.
The first technology of its kind
Mom and Dad, I have great news.
is now providing answers families need. Siemens Answers.
We believe that if love is a chemical reaction, chemistry has a good chance to make the world a more harmonious place. Chemistry works so that families end up loving the world. Families are less afraid of energy bills. And even cars and clean air get along better. That's why we don't just make chemicals, we create chemistry. BASF, the chemical company.